Hello everyone, and welcome to another Devstream breakdown. So, first of all, before we get into this, for anyone who is, for whatever reason, worried that I'm not making Warframe videos anymore or something because I made 2 Genshin videos, no, I'm still playing Warframe. I didn't quit. I'm still I can play both. Both games can be played simultaneously. Turns out that's the way things work. So let's get into this Devstream breakdown. So this is the 8th home stream that they've gone into, and we have a ton to talk about. I literally have multiple pages of notes, and there is a dev workshop out, so we have a lot to go over. So we're going to try and go over it fairly quickly, or at least as quickly as I can. First and foremost, the PlayStation 5 version of Warframe has been announced. So if you're going to be getting a PlayStation 5, then you'll be able to play Warframe on it. That's the thing that can happen. Your saves from PS4 and stuff are all going to come over to that. And then Steve talked very briefly about like recognizing that cross save is a thing that the community wants. So that all seems super awesome. PS5 version stuff looks cool. Obviously, it'll be impossible to know how it plays until it's out realistically. But from the visuals that they showed, it looks like it is much, much closer to the current PC version of Warframe. And it's supposed to run at 60 frames per second, which is a huge, like gigantic, massive improvement from what the PlayStation 4 version is currently doing. So with that, we also have some Glaive buffs to talk about. And just to go over the Glaive buffs in depth, this is the thing that has a dev workshop. So we have the dev workshop here from Connor. I'm just going to really quickly go over kind of what is entailed here. Basically, they're making the heavy attacks way, way better. So damage go up and consistency go up, and the times that you can use them much, much better as well. So basically, hold throw is going to be essentially available everywhere. Sliding, in the air, you're going to get multiple throws, and then you're going to be able to chain the throws together. That's essentially what this is going through. And you're also going to have your regular melee stance combos in the Glaive and Gun mode. So the stances are actually going to have some effect if you're one of the people that is using like the Kuva Lich and a Glaive together. You are still going to get your like nice stance modifiers and stuff. So that will also be very good. And then we have some mod changes. So we've got power throw getting a change, which is 2-meter punch through, and consecutive throws get 100% throw damage up to 3 stacks. With the regular throw damage increase and consistency, this might actually be way, way better because like 0.6 punch through, like power throw going way back in time, actually was used quite a lot on Glaives because there was a time when Glaives were very good. This should be very helpful to making Glaives even more competitive with like throw damage going up and stuff. And then we have 2 new mods, which is Volatile Rebound and Volatile Quick Return, which are just volatile versions of mods that we already have. But this makes it so that whenever it hits a thing, it explodes. We have the minus bounce, which we'd expect from Quick Return, and basically just like doubling the blast radius and making it explode seems potentially really good, at least for low-level gameplay. These improvements seem like they're going to make Glaives much more appealing. If the damage from Glaives can scale into higher levels, just based on the videos that they've shown, which I will show one real quick. Like obviously these enemies are what, level 7, I believe it is. So the damage output is not really anything to keep in tow. But if the Glaive gameplay here can look like even level 70 or 80 gameplay in terms of the damage output of the Glaives, they'll be a much, much better weapon overall. Because right now, you can use a number of the Glaives as just a melee weapon getting close to enemies, and they work fine, but throwing them is just not very effective. So if this can bring up the throwing part so that the Glaives actually kind of have their unique thing they're supposed to have, then these will be much better weapons. So that's exciting to me personally, just having a new weapon to use. And then moving on, we have steel path changes. So steel path changes, these are a little bit contentious, I think, because there's one thing in particular here that's a little weird. So acolytes are now going to be home to the steel path. So acolytes are going to be all over the steel path, and you're going to get steel essence from them. Cool, great. I really like this. Having a place to permanently integrate the acolytes, I think, is fantastic. Awesome stuff. There's also going to be Steel Path dailies, and you're going to get Steel Essence from both the acolytes and from the dailies. And they kind of describe the dailies as being a thing where you're going to get guaranteed Steel Essence from them. It's also going to help congregate the people that are even doing Steel Path together. You can get more matches together, which makes sense. Obviously, matchmaking was a huge issue that many people brought up, with Steel Path being a whole nother star chart when our regular star chart was already not particularly populated in some areas. So that's interesting. Then we have a weekly store rotation for Teshin that's going to be coming out. So there's going to be new items in Teshin's store, and they're going to be on a rotation. We don't know what these items consist of yet, but if they're evergreen rewards and stuff, that's probably going to be pretty compelling. And Steel Essence is being removed from Eximus, but Eximus are still going to have Riven Slivers. The Steel Essence being removed from Eximus pretty much removes the farm from Steel Path, which was the thing that people were doing. And I think this might be a response to technically the Steel Essence farm being the best farm for Kuva and stuff. So that seems really bad. That seems really bad to kind of like have all these great changes coming together and then also just remove Steel Essence from the way that people were getting it already. So like those established farms just die off and stuff. So is it just dailies now, which are, I mean, dailies and acolytes being the only way to get Steel Essence and like just taking them off of Eximus, obviously outside of the junction rewards. That seems really rough. Like I really love this list of changes outside of Steel Essence literally being removed from where we get it right now. And I understand that Steel Essence is a very, very poor drop rate on Eximus, but I mean, there are like literally like people have done farms for it because it can attain value if you do extremely long runs. I would much rather have seen them put like a limit on how much Steel Essence can drop in a mission and have Eximus have a higher chance to drop Steel Essence or something, just so that they're not encouraging people to stay in a mission for like 5 hours or whatever, so that Eximus spawns get to a reasonable number, and more so that you can actually get some Steel Essence from those Eximus more regularly as you would be doing the missions normally. But that's a whole complicated thing. It's a lot of good stuff with one particularly bad thing that I think a lot of people that are actually doing the Steel Path are going to dislike. Anyway, now we have a big, gigantic other note to talk about here, which is that there are a bunch of revisions coming into different Warframes. So we're going to go over all of these. First and foremost, we have Chroma, which we got to see a little bit. Chroma is getting element switching, so he will no longer be determined by color. He'll just be able to switch on the fly. That stuff's great. And then we have Spectral Scream, which is now going to have 100% status and chaining. We don't know the distances on the chaining or anything like that, so that'll be interesting to see if it's actually good. But 100% status, like if you also bump up the number of Spectral Scream, maybe the heat version of it would be okay-ish. Like okay to good, depending on the rate that it stacks procs. Like that's really, really mega hopeful because Spectral Scream is one of the worst abilities in the game, bar none. That this ability could maybe be useful. So I'm probably more optimistic than I should be about Spectral Scream. But I hope that it becomes like a crazy chain fire, lightning, toxin, ice beam that you can shoot out. Like that sounds cool at the very least. And then moving on, this is also 6 Warframes. They have said that they are going to be doing like more going forward, but this is what's coming soon here. Nidus is getting enemies killed in larva have a % chance to generate stacks, and it was talked about that you don't have to be the one killing them to have that % chance to generate your stacks. We don't know what that % chance is going to be yet. Hopefully it's like 50% or like, like 30 to 40% or somewhere in that margin, like the 30 to 50 range is probably good for that. But this will help Nidus massively because this will stack on top of, hey, I put these enemies into my larva and then I cast my 1, so I'm getting the stack from that, and then also a potential stack from them dying. That helps Nidus build up much, much faster. It means that he's going to be better in a shorter amount of time, which is what Nidus really, really needs because his gameplay style is just not accelerated enough for kind of what missions have asked from us so far. Also, this means that in a lot of cases, the weak enemies that you just like zoop into larva and then swing your melee weapon once, you can still build stacks from that, which is absolutely fantastic. So Nidus changes seem great. Chroma is getting some cool stuff, but I wish there were more changes for his 4 and stuff, obviously. And then we have Necros. So Necros's change is unfortunately not great. Soul Punch is going to have a 25% threshold instant kill. Basically, that means if the enemy is at 25% or lower HP, it will instantly kill them, and then it will create a clone for your 4, or heal clones if you are full up on clones. So, both of those things suck. Like, I know that Shield of Shadows is technically a build for Necros. I think that is, like, a fun but really, really inefficient way to play Necros because those shadows suck, and they just add an amount of management that's just not really productive. And also, threshold killing is not good in Warframe because in Warframe, the way that the game is right now is that an enemy is pretty much at either 100% health or 0% health in 99% of the content that we're playing. So this 25% threshold, unless it's moddable, and honestly, even then, because what are you going to get at 200% power strength, 50%? Even that's not really not anything to write home about. I think this doesn't move the needle at all for Necros. Like, hey, is it technically an improvement? Yeah, sure. But kind of whatever. Similarly, for Atlas, the Bulwark is going to have AoE slash damage on enemies that touch it. This also seems like it doesn't move the needle at all. Like, not even really a little bit. This seems like a thing that, I mean, unless the damage is crazy and like much better than Atlas's one is right now, and like just really insane damage. Even then, it'd be such an awkward ability to use that I don't know if it would see use, even if it was doing like 1 million damage slash procs, like realistically. But yeah, so that seems rough. And then we have an additional revision on Zephyr. So Airburst is going to get additional damage per hit, and it is going to give you a Parazon opener whenever enemies are on 25% or less HP. This 25% or less HP thing, I really wish we would stop seeing it. We have it on Garuda, now we have it on Zephyr, now we have it on Necros. It's not useful. I would love to see like usage statistics on Warframes that have this to see what, like, when is it being used ever. Just like to know, because it seems like absolutely useless, especially for a Parazon opener where it's like I open this enemy to a Parazon finisher, and then I have to like get up close to them and like do the finisher animation. Like all this stuff is like super slow for the pace of Warframe usually, and obviously Parazon finishers have some additional bonuses to them because you can build for like it giving you energy or health or reloading your weapon or whatnot. But at a 25% health chance, like that just seems, it just seems poor. I think it'd be, if this could be 75% chance, and I don't think it'd be that useful. It'd just be a thing that happens sometimes for you, and I think that would be completely and totally fine. Like literally tripling the percent health necessary to make this happen. But you know, it is what it is. It's technically not a downside, so there's that. And then we have some tornado changes. So these tornado changes are actually kind of similar to some of the things that I suggested in my Zephyr rework video. And I'm pretty excited for how they're going to turn out because the tornadoes are going to be more sticky, so it's going to be harder for enemies to get out of them, which is great. That's just a huge improvement in general. And there is going to be a new hold functionality on Tornado to set tornadoes like in a spot. So you have like this spot is tornadoes. So you'll be able to shoot into those tornadoes to deal damage and have them be very consistently in one area. This leads to some potential play with Zephyr where you could have some very, very consistent synergy with some other Warframes, perhaps. Like if you're doing the tornadoes plus Vauban, you could like zoop everything into a vortex, and then they're also in tornadoes, taking multiplying damage. Like doing that stuff seems potentially good. Huge improvements for Zephyr here. I think these are pretty major just because improvements to Tornado are really the huge thing that will move the needle on Zephyr being good or not. And then for Ashe, we have a minor but pretty good change to him. There are no longer going to be single pips in his Blade Storm. So as it stands right now, you activate Ashe's Blade Storm, and whenever you look at an enemy, they get 1 out of 3 pips. Now, whenever you look at an enemy, they're just going to get all 3. What we don't know yet if that is if that is going to change the energy considerations for Ashe in putting his markers on enemies. But what we do know is that this means that you can sweep a group of enemies once with your Blade Storm and then throw out your clones, and you can rest assured that they're going to take full damage from your 4, which is a pretty nice improvement for Ashe overall, because it just means that you can do what you're doing faster. I would still, of course, like to see changes that, like, other changes to Ash to like make his 3 better and stuff outside of like extremely niche scenarios and things. I think would also be super great. But this is definitely an improvement for Bladestorm. Okay, a lot of Warframe revision stuff. I would say on the whole, these are positive. They're moving in a positive direction, but there are just some weird choices, like I said, with Airburst, Bulwark, and Soul Punch. Those ones seem like very strange, but otherwise, I'm pretty happy with this chunk of changes. It's a lot of things that a lot of people have asked for a long time. Good stuff. Hopefully, we see even more of this going forward. So now we can move on back to augments. We are also getting 4 new augments. We're getting a Breach Surge augment for Wisp, which is teleporting with it, costs 50% energy, and then gives 10% crit chance per meter traveled to snipers only, and that's capped at 350% additional crit chance. I really dislike this as a design. This being only for snipers, with this much of a restriction, I know that it can be built up, and 350% crit chance is not nothing. But at the point where like my kit has been restricted down to Wisp, casting Wisps 1 in multiple different locations, and having it be beneficial for me to teleport between those locations, and I'm using a sniper, like that's a real heavy set of restrictions on this ever seeing use. And then it also like, needing to be built up, and yeah, it seems like a rough proposition. Like this feels like it's enough combined factors that you need to put together that the bonus should be much larger. Where like you're getting like if this was 20% crit chance capped at like 600%, I'd be like maybe this is a like good enough reason to use this augment on Wisp, perhaps. But once again, like also all these augments take a mod slot, so you have to also take into the consideration that this mod needs to be worth its mod slot, and it's tough to have so many restrictions and have it also be worthwhile in its slot. But I'll be interested to see if anybody comes up with like a good reason to use this. But it is at least fun for people who both want to use Wisp and want to use a sniper rifle. Moving on though, we have something that is not great, which is Thrall Pact for Revenant. You'll get 10% primary damage for each Thrall that you have. So, I'll be honest, this is also restrictive. Why this is restricted to just primary damage and not like weapon damage is a mystery to me. Because I can understand why you wouldn't want to increase the damage from like Revenant's 3 and stuff with this augment, because it's percentile based damage and all that stuff. But not increasing all your weapons damage, like, just once again seems unnecessarily restrictive on this. And also the bonus is fairly small for you having to build up thralls that are usually just going to die very, very quickly. So that's kind of whatever. And then we have Mock Crash for Gauss, which I think is probably easily the best one out of these. Basically, you're going to vortex enemies within 8 meters whenever you slam into walls with your 1. So potentially there is a melee consideration for Gauss on this, building like, a decent little chunk of range, being able to zoop all the enemies into one area, and then use Gauss with melee, which is already very, very good to blender those enemies very quickly and then move on. I could definitely see a room clearing melee focused Gauss that can utilize this augment. I think that's not unrealistic at all, and is like, not necessarily a new playstyle for Gauss because he was already very good with melee weapons, but potentially a better way to do a playstyle that already exists with Gauss, which seems pretty beneficial. I like Mock Crash, like just adding into Gauss's gameplay quite a bit, and it'll be an interesting consideration for Gauss people to maybe want to actually build some range, which would also make their 3 a bit better, which might also be good. And then we have the weirdest one of the bunch, Blending Talons for Garuda. You can tap it to do a 7-meter AoE when this is leveled, which obviously will scale with range and stuff, and that is interesting. That's pretty reasonable. You won't have to charge it up, which I think is maybe compelling. But then also, randomly on top of this, Garuda's Talons gain 100% combo chance when hitting bleeding targets. For those that don't know, Garuda's Talons are the weapon that you get whenever you unequip a melee weapon on Garuda, because you get just her actual claws to stab around with. And I don't understand why it is specific to Garuda's Talons and not melee weapons. this is another one of those things where it's just weirdly specific for no reason. Garuda's Talons are good and all, and like this would be an additional reason to use Garuda's Talons with her, just like because it's for melee weapons and they are a melee weapon. If it was just for melee weapons, and combo chance, like additional combo chance is not hugely in demand, I'm gonna say in general. So I don't think this would be very OP at all if it was just on just melee weapons, period. So it's a very weird one. Maybe the tap to do the AoE is going to be good. We will see. There's some potential that this could be combined with Breach Surge in order to make the Breach Surge combo much faster. But I'll have to try that on release. I think the second part of this is a very strange addition, just in general. But yeah, that is the augments. Moving on, we have some new weapons. So we have the Infested Warframe, which you've already seen, which we do have confirmation in Deimos Arcana. This is going to have the new stance with it. All these weapons are in the Deimos Arcana. And then we're also getting the grenade launcher, which comes with the new mech. We can see this here. We have some Lich changes coming, but I want to talk about the Deimos Arcana stuff here real quick. We're getting the Bone Widow mech. There's Zaku changes. The Gara Deluxe skin is coming. The Steel Path and Acolytes, which we already talked about. There are going to be some conservation changes where they're going to have some new benefits for like actually doing the capture as well, because right now that stuff is totally absent from Deimos. There are going to be new Deimos bounties that are deeper underground and stuff. They showed like a kind of cool Sarlacc pit puzzle kind of enemy thing that we're going to encounter, which seemed pretty neat. And then we are also getting Infested Kit Guns, which I mentioned just briefly before. And then 7+ new weapons in total, which we've seen a variety of before. New Arcanes, which they did not go into, but they said that they might just like put those out slowly or like give them to people to show off or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see where those new Arcanes are and what they do, if they can, actually be really good ones, or if they're going to end up being too specific like we've seen from some of these augments and some of the previous Arcanes. And then the 4 augments are also labeled here. And then don't forget that this also comes with these previous notes that we have on Deimos Arcana. All this other stuff is also coming. With that, let's talk about some Lich changes that are happening. So Lich changes, basically, the real bare bones of this, there is more to this, but the confirmed stuff is that there's going to be region-based matching so that it's going to be easier to get people together for Liches. And they are going to be a boss in Railjack as a new finale flow. So we might actually get like the in-space Railjack Lich fight stuff. My concern for this is whether or not someone else is going to be able to take you to your Lich in Railjack to kill it. Because if not, that might be hugely restrictive for a new player to be able to go and finish off their Lich, and then they'll just be stuck with the Lich for a very long time. That's my concern with them always being a boss in Railjack. So it'll be interesting to see what the breakdown of that is. Like if more experienced players like myself who have a maxed out Railjack and stuff are going to be able to assist people who probably don't have any of that shit farmed in taking down their Lich with them. That'll be interesting and maybe a good reason to go and do Railjack, because the Lich weapons are pretty powerful on average. So a good reason to do your Railjack stuff would be that, essentially. And then in addition to that, which is not listed here on the image, they said murmurs are being looked at. They didn't really give more details on that, so it's in discussion with the devs, but murmurs in general are being looked at. So that's very good. And then we have some information on the Corpus Queen Pins. Basically, we got a lot of information that we kind of already heard, and then we saw one of the guns we're getting from them. So they are the Parvos executives, and they have briefcase guns. This is a transforming gun from the bottom version to the top version, and that's fun. That's cool. Hopefully we see more on the Queen Pins going forward. We know that is not coming in Deimos Arcana, and we also got information that basically we're getting Deimos Arcana very soon here, and then kind of the update after that is going to be Queen Pins and also like Lavos and stuff like that. So cool stuff. We saw a good deal. Like I think that the revisions are moving in like a pretty good direction. Like honestly pretty optimistic about a good chunk of these like actually mattering. But there's, it's about a 50-50 rate of changes that I think are going to be very like positive, and changes that I think are going to kind of not really move the needle at all. But that's much better than some some of the changes that we got going into the helmet system with like Trinity and Zephyr, for example, which I think were 0 for 2 at that point. So I think hitting the mark on some improvements is nice here, because these seems like we're gonna get some stuff. But yeah, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video, and I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye, everybody. Oh, also, side note here at the end, I'm going to be streaming tonight. I have a very active stream schedule, so if anyone's concerned about not seeing much YouTube stuff, because I've been pretty inconsistent with YouTube videos, hey, I stream a lot. I have a stream schedule where I stream usually 5 or 6 days a week, so come do that. It's posted on Twitter all the time. There's the Discord in the description. All that good business. See you there. Goodbye, everybody.